School expelled me for mom's anger. We sued the county and caused a reform. Not sure if this fits this sub, but felt like posting my story. I have no issue with removing it if it doesn't quite meet the standard. So I have a really bad leg. I've had 13 surgeries. Long story. And had just started at a new school. After the first 3 weeks, I had to go in for another procedure on my leg. Not that big a deal to me. I've been here before. Upon my return, I had documentation of my restrictions, as well as special amenities that were required. The big three were that I needed extra time to get from class to class, must have someone to escort me, and needed unrestricted access to the elevator. All of these got me recurring problems such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time. And why was my cousin out too? He was filling the role as my escort, as I have anxiety problems and we had the same classes. These first two were annoying, but easy enough to deal with. The real issue was the elevator, as I was told multiple times that for security issues I couldn't have a personal key due to it sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would never have had any issues with this, as I was told there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes to open the elevator. For me, this of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The lack of elevator access meant that I was always stuck in the halls when other students were going class to class, and was consistently late due to having to wait for someone to come by and open the door for the elevator. This also meant that I would sometimes be stuck waiting through the entire lunch period, and due to my absences couldn't afford to simply go to lunch after the fact. After about 3 weeks of this, I was tired of not getting to eat lunch, so I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted and tried to use the stairs. For context, I was not on crutches. I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down to the landing, I fell hard. As lunch was letting out, one of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. Another of my friends went to find my other cousin. The one who normally escorted me wasn't there due to being sick. So I was without escort because I couldn't bear the though of gasp a stranger escorting me, who when getting to the office managed to get me to calm down enough to give them my mother's number. Now, my mother is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her I didn't want to miss lunch again, so I tried to use the stairs. Big mistake, as that set off a Tsar Bomba-sized explosive. She immediately turned around and demanded for the principal and VP to get their asses in here ASAP. As soon as the principal and VP walked in, she started berating them in a fashion not suitable for most adults to hear, let alone kids. When the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, my mother was swarmed by local sheriffs that provided security for the school's entrances and office as she physically went after the VP. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same address, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed as she looked after me after I left school up until around 8 p.m. She also was raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me, and told her I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house, and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as a result of my fall, and redo the work of the previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP, principal, and the county school board. We were contacted by a lawyer who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court. And he told us he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board. And though a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their shit. Fast forward 9 months, and I was walking out of court with a settlement to cover all my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul, and that the principal and VP would be let go, and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My new school was let know day one my medical requirements and my need for a personal elevator key by the superintendent and the head of the State Board of Education. Long story short, school majorly fucked up with handling my medical requirements, resulting in a lawsuit that cost the head administrators their jobs, as well as a full-blown county-wide investigation of disability procedures. The really stupid part of this is that all they had to do was rekey the elevator so it could be given to people who need it. If they were worried about kids making copies, they could rekey it every once in a while. For crying out loud. That's what my high school did in the 1970s. Long before there were laws about needing to accommodate disabilities. Also, I know it was a typo, but I really wish I'd gone to a school with its own official county wild pig. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I was hit by a drunk driver in 6th grade and my left leg was smashed all to bits. I had a lot of surgeries etc. and leg braces and crutches. The first week back at school after months being out and the school being made fully aware of all my injuries and restrictions, the gym teacher thought it would be smart to lift me up by the knees to do a pull-up. Jerk pulled out all my stitches in the knee and had me bleeding like a fountain. My father had about the same reaction as your mother when he got to the school. I'm convinced the only reason he wasn't arrested was because he was in his military uniform and the police cut him some slack. Hope you're doing better with your leg now. Good for you and your mother and the lawyer for not letting them get away with their negligence. Edit. Clarifying since I seem to have been confusing with what I wrote. My dad was not the gym teacher. He was an officer in the USAF who was required to wear his uniform while working, and he came straight to the school to pick me up and did not have time to change his uniform first. Thanks, everyone, for your interest. But let's not forget this is the OP's story equals. Nice. It's time to get rid of the attitude that fully accommodating disabilities is asking for special privileges. People with disabilities are only asking for one thing: to be given access equal to everybody else. They deserve that. Nothing less. For those wondering, this story happened back in 2012. Just now getting around to posting it here, as I honestly had no idea this sub even existed until about a week ago. Thank you all so much for your kind words and support. I'm glad others can find peace in knowing my story evoked change for the better. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP, principal, and the county school board. I guess they went full Obelix. This is absolutely epic. Beautiful revenge. Major props to your mom for standing up for you. Way to go, Momzilla. Way to go, Mom. How are your injuries now? Will things eventually get better, or is this an ongoing process for the foreseeable future? Reminds me of the time in my freshman year when one of my friends fell super hard on the ice, which resulted in him needing surgery, pins in his leg, and a wheelchair for the rest of the year. There was about one singular elevator key for the entire school at that time. and my friend was constantly having to wait for it to show up so he could get to his next class. Thankfully for this story, the school realized this was incredibly stupid, and got several more elevator keys made. My friend had to suffer without his own key for a month. But they finally got one for him. German. Had a beef with the headmaster of my daughter's school and she recommended that I find a new school for her. I got written confirmation from the German equivalent of a school board of my state that the behavior of a parent cannot lead to expelling a pupil. And why the beef? Because I went straight to the school board 2 times after she did something dumb and did not talk to her first. My friend took a creative writing class senior year from a teacher that only worked out of a portable. She's wheelchair bound. I had a class across from her that period, so I helped out. She had asked the school for a ramp before the summer break, twice in the summer, and 4 times in the fall, while now threatening legal action. The UCLA person she talked to knew the phone number to the superintendent of the district and called. No love. So, about 1 month before the end of fall classes, her mom attends a state school board meeting. She sits right next to the mic and waits. Open mic time and she snatches it. It was lightning fast to hear her tell it. My daughter is wheelchair bound and has to take stairs into her class. Here are copies of my written requests for a ramp and the 4 emails threatening legal action. Here's a letter from my guy at the UCLA I contacted for help requesting a ramp. If you don't install a ramp, I am going to go to the local media. Quote. That was a Thursday. The ramp was in Tuesday. Monday was a school holiday. Epic. My middle child is a type 1 diabetic, and in the 21st century this requires a lot of gear. Medicine, snacks, and technology. One medicine she has is an emergency kit containing glucagon that in an emergency case of low blood sugar will release all the sugar stored in her body at once and bring her back even from the edge of death to being alright, if feeling like poo. Because it has a syringe and requires a bit of work, the school refused to administer this. In a life-threatening situation, they will watch her die while they wait for my wife, myself, or the paramedics to show up and give it to her. When I talked to them, they suggested this new version that is a nasal powder that works just as well but is $600 and not covered by my insurance. She has never been that low sick, so I waited until her big appointment of the year where we see the nutritionist, doctor, and a social worker at the children's hospital. Both the doctor and social worker were horrified. They gave me a ton of information on how to deal with the situation. Cut to a week later, I sent a note to the school nurse and tell her that in an emergency the school is required to administer the medicine if needed, and as it was her orders, it was essentially the law. She said nobody was trained and the school wouldn't pay for it. But I could, if I found a staff member to volunteer. Next day I went to the school to have words. The wife is usually super non-confrontational. But on this day she said to go get them but don't hurt anyone. So I go up there all fired up and ready to go for the throat. I say hello to the office ladies, whom I know and love, and ask to speak to the principal. We go into a conference room and I tell him what the school nurse said. Show him the email. Show him the lawsuit and settlement from a school district in our state that did the same thing. I am quickly getting worked up to a lather. I almost hit peak Karen level, as I tell him that the situation will be resolved to my complete satisfaction, or I will notify the Department of Justice and every diabetes support group that cares about such things. By God, I will have blood. He looks me right in the eye and says, "Sir, I am so sorry. I can tell this has really upset you, and I promise I will absolutely handle this. Give me a week to talk to everyone necessary and we will have a plan and a timeline. It really took the wind out of my sails, I tell you what. He called 3 days later with the promised plan and timeline. 2 days later all the kids went home because of COVID, and mine haven't been back yet because diabetes makes her and her mother at high risk for a bad reaction if they get sick with COVID. On the plus side, the principal of the middle school called us personally to welcome us and assure us that all steps have been taken, including implementing the plan the elementary school principal devised, and to assure us that everything will be all right. That school sounds shitty, and I am glad you won your suit against them. Hope your leg is better. The one part of the story I don't understand is the address issue. It sounds like there was some deceit on the part of your mother in order to have you go to that school. Was there a reason she wanted you at the school? Was it supposed to be better than the school you were supposed to go to? When I got diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at 27, I could see the anger on my doctor's face that it wasn't caught by my top in the state school. And that's saying something because I don't normally notice that kind of thing. I'm so for an overhaul of out-of-touch admins in charge of so many lives in such formative years. Thanks for helping make the change. Hope your legs are getting better. Good for you. I'm sorry you've gone through this, but I'm glad justice was taken. Growing up, I've dealt with severe UC, which required me to leave the classroom constantly many times throughout the day to go to the bathroom. I could spend 10 to 15 minutes each time in there. No cell phone. Just a boring bathroom. It's not like I'd want to do it. I had to get a special card allowing that because normally people are allowed 2 bathroom breaks, and allowing me to bring myself a water bottle around to help with the dehydration. Multiple times I'd get comments from teachers saying how it's completely unnecessary for me to go to the bathroom so much, or get comments from kids who always saw me leaving. I wasn't able to stay at that school long. Had to go to the hospital, but before I left there was another comment made and my mom came and talked to the principal, who talked to that teacher who was apparently reprimanded for being so rude. Normally I don't get the sue culture in the States, but with schools like that I get that it is not a luxury. I had a classmate who had a personal chair in school. He and a friend needed to go out of class 5 minutes early to get to the next class. Had an elevator key, no problems from the start. I can't imagine having to go through shit like this, and school does everything to fight you instead of helping. I know it's a harmless typo, but I like the idea of every county has a boar in charge of something to do with schools. Like a modern folk tale. Don't skip school or the school boar will come for you. When I was at school in the 90s, there was a boy in the year above me on a mobility scooter from some blood disorder where he bled forever without clotting. He had a personal elevator key then. There's no excuse for this crap in the modern age. Well played. Sorry for what you had to go through. Which country do you live in? I'm not familiar with the need of a key for the elevator, sorry. Can I be a curious stranger and ask what medical condition requires so many surgeries? That sounds awful for a child.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.